Hey, Aaron, how are you? We'll be there in just 1 minute. Just getting set up. All right. I think we're ready. Ken, I'm getting feedback from you.
Me?
Yeah, getting feedback. Not sure what's going on there. No, now you're on mute.
I have no idea.
Oh, what is going on? You know how to use the internet? Welcome back, everybody, to the Creative Economy. Ken is learning how to use his computer, so hopefully he'll be back with us in a second. Where's my starting stuff? I can't find my script. I can't find anything today. So yeah, welcome back to Creative Briefs. This is our weekly recap of the top news and analysis from the creator economy. Every week, we're going to bring you a roundup of the latest news, analysis, and deep dives on key topics that are happening inside the creator economy at large. We go live on Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific time. You can find out more over at created.show. It's the official show page for all of our live content. We do stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Clubhouse, and Twitter Spaces, so pick your poison. And we also post longer form content and notes over at our website at creativeeconomy.com. So we've got a lot of news to dive into today. So Ken, I'm going to have you... actually, I guess I should do the deck like normal. Like a normal person, so I don't forget to do these things. So many things to move when you're, a live streamer.
If only there was some easy, simple system that you just press a button.
And then here's the funny thing: like now my deck won't move.
You realize what today is? It's Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Let me see. Present. Space. Like, look, there's no key. The keys aren't working. All right. Well, I guess I'll just tell you what these say. So, by the way, make sure you follow us over on Creative Economy. We're Creative Economy on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Flipboard. I think we're also over there in Clubhouse. So you can find us in all those places. So we look forward to chatting with you and seeing you in some of those places. All righty, Ken, let's get right into the news. We got a ton to dive into today.
Absolutely. All right. And this is for you.
Okay, yeah. So Streamlabs, in case you don't know, is one of the leading tools to sort of help streamers. They provide a software layer on top, but they also, because they push so much streaming content, also produce what they call the streaming industry report. Their Q2 data has just come out. A lot of interesting stats in there. So I'll just give you some of the top line statistics that they had from their But the total number of hours watched across all streaming platforms increased by 2.5%, from 8.77 billion hours in Q1 to 8.99 billion hours in Q2. So everyone who's been saying that streaming is going away because all of a sudden everyone's back outside, well, actually, it turns out everyone's not back outside. So I guess you should keep your eyes closed and focused, because I do think there's a lot of action still in the streaming world. Viewers did spend about 3 hours per month watching live streaming content.
3 billion hours.
3 billion. What did I say?
3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Same thing.
Times a billion. But the viewership growth rates are slowing down, right? So maybe we are reaching a little bit of saturation there potentially, but obviously they're still continuing to grow. The big takeaway: Grand Theft Auto 5 was the most watched game across all live streaming platforms. So if you are a fan of the game, there's probably great Twitch content out there for you. However, for me, as someone building a live streaming platform as well, and interested in sort of the other forms of live streaming, not purely the gaming side, Just Chatting still had an impressive 822 million hours watched in Q2. This was a 68 million hour increase from Q1. And, it's kind of funny because when we had Nicolina on last time, she was saying how, Just Chatting, I don't even talk about that. But, it is there, it is real, and it is large. So we do, in the show notes, we'll provide a link to a great video where they go through some of this data as well. But that's it for the new report from Streamlabs on the state of streaming. Ken, you're up next.
All right. So sticking with the streaming topic, there's some controversy that is impacting Twitch this week. There's a report from the Washington Post who's being called out for bad behavior, for facilitating bots and haters to basically spam marginalized streamers, right? And so what is happening is that people from marginalized communities who go live, they're finding that there are some evil people who are spamming their comments, putting out hate and whatnot. And what's happening is that Twitch has responded saying, look, we're going to take a look at this. This is of their utmost priority for them. And what they're going to do is roll out a proactive filter that will kind of wipe out all of these hater comments in advance. And they're going to roll out some additional features later on this year, which they're calling channel level ban evasion direction and count verification improvements. So this is actually, that's a long-winded way.
Nice short name for.
That's according to their statement. So I'm not actually sure what that actually entails, but it's going to, what Twitch hopes it will do is allow streamers to be proactive, to have that defense mechanism to say, look, we're not going to allow hate and violent content to exist on here because it's not creating a helpful, positive community.
Actually, real quick, Arnold, are you still getting the echo from Ken? I'm not hearing it now, so I'm just curious if it's happening.
Okay.
Or Arnold could be, as usual, just trying to get to shut you up, Ken.
This is also true.
Very interesting. I'm not sure why we're getting this echo, but if we are getting the echo, by the way, please drop a comment and let us know so we can try to see if we can adjust it. Same here. Oh, wait. Now I'm kind of hearing a little bit of an echo thing. I was getting an echo also. So I think everyone wants Ken to not talk anymore. I'm going to turn on my echo cancellation. I don't know if is this helping it at all, everyone? Did that help anything? Oh, Ken's not saying anything, so maybe we don't know. It's only with Ken, though. not a coincidence, Arnold, huh? I see. Sorry. Yeah. Arnold says sorry, Ken. All right. Well, the next article is mine, so why don't we jump over to the next one? Actually, no, Ken, can we move ahead? Actually, let's just go to the radical transparency article because I think it's kind of tied into what you just covered on the Twitch side. But I think in a related sort of vein, Instagram has also been, pretty upfront not upfront, but I think recognizing that they are having more and more issues and challenges with sort of hate and bad behavior from individuals all over the place in the ecosystem. And so Twitter is just, Instagram has just introduced a new set of tools designed to help that. And I think this is just sort of one of the challenges with radical transparency, right? Like as we put ourselves out there and we're available and giving people like a point of view or insight into so much of our own lives, it's inevitable, I guess, that there's going to be people who don't know when to stop or can't, listen properly. So Instagram announced some new features. One of them was the ability for people to limit comments and DM requests during spikes of increased attention. They are also putting in stronger warnings when people try to post potentially offensive comments. It's like a pop-up. Let's see, can I make that window bigger there? Ken? Yeah. But they are doing like a pop-up. Can you scroll down and show that picture real quick, Ken? So it kind of says, hey, are you sure you want to say this? And I believe Twitter has actually had some of these tools or similar tools like this as well in the past. And there's also a global rollout of what they call hidden words, which allows people to filter abusive DM requests. And I think, when we talk about the broader story or the longer form problems or challenges of mental health around the creator space, this is sort of all important and related information. But it is important that platforms be building and thinking about sort of the safety and well-being and the mindset of creators as well as they sort of develop tools. So it's good to see more action and attention in this area, even though, obviously we're still early in the process and there's probably an infinite amount that can be done. And will help in the process. So Ken, let's try going back to you. Let's see if.
All right, can you hear me now?
How's that, gang? Are you getting feedback from Ken still? All right, well, keep going.
All right, well, Arnold, you can't shut me up, buddy. I'm still here. Where there's a will, there's a way. All right, so Greg, I think this one is yours
actually,
now
we
as well.
One. Oh no, oh, sorry, we didn't skip one. Sorry. No, I think we had Snap next, or is that me next? All right, I'll do this one anyway. So next up, interestingly enough, I think live streaming isn't for everyone. Arnold says you're all better, by the way. I think he said he still doesn't like your voice. But live streaming, I think when we think about it often, kind of back to that earlier report from Streamlabs, it can often feel like, oh, it's all about like gaming or game and this and that, right? And obviously one of the top categories for streaming content, at least in our ecosystem, by the way, like obviously the top streaming content is probably entertainment content from like the movie studios, et cetera. But gaming seems like the top social content that's streamed. Obviously we know it's just chatting, but there's pretty tremendous B2B opportunities here as well. So Salesforce actually just recently announced that they have a brand new sort of Salesforce Plus platform, as they call it, which I believe seems to be like sort of like their version of like an ongoing Zoom engagement model with their customer base, with their prospects, and ultimately with the ecosystem. What they're going to be doing is they're building studios and then sort of, 50 editorial leads to sort of help put together. So it's a pretty stood up effort, I would say, relative to trying to create this kinds of content. Just in a related note, recently Casey Hunt, who's a reporter or journalist used to be at MSNBC, was just poached over to CNN to run CNN's news service. I forgot the name of it. It's like
might be CNN Plus. I mean,
CNN Plus, I believe it's called.
All streaming services are Plus,
right? Which is their CNN's kind of late entry into the universe, but they are trying to create their own, stand up their own streaming service as well. So I think it just it's an encouragement that you don't have to think about streaming purely from sort of the perspectives that exist. There is lots of great B2B use cases. There are lots of great SMB use cases out there that are still viable. They're still interesting, but we aren't necessarily tapping into all of them enough, somewhat because maybe folks think that streaming's for a different purpose. And also I think obviously because we're building and creating the tools to make it possible for other kinds of people to stream better.
But Greg, I think also this kind of opens up a new avenue of discussion, because as we're talking in previous shows where creators are creating their own professional development type of programs, right? Like Nas Daily and everything like that. What's happening here is what Salesforce is Salesforce Plus is going to be very similar to like demand-based TV, what Cloudflare has. So it's basically like, okay, we're going to promote like, here's educational stuff to help you better use Salesforce products, right? They have a slew of things for the enterprise, right?
Yeah.
But a big popular platform they have is Trailhead, which is their learning platform for people who want to better themselves from a career perspective and so on and so forth, right? Salesforce is a very popular tool in the enterprise, in the workplace. So could this open up, create new creators within the workplace, right? So that instead of
Yeah,
me creating stuff for
that's a good
average
point.
Joe and Jane, I can do it for like the LinkedIn crowd. Like, hey, this is how you better yourself for and be a Salesforce admin or do whatever, right? And have them be influencers, creators, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's a great point, Ken. So I think on two fronts, actually, I guess, right? Like one, I think more opportunities within the enterprise uh, for there to be new roles to be filled. And I think a couple weeks ago we talked about on the news that there were pretty significant job hirings. Like even Amazon was like one of the top hirers right now for like sort of creators as a category. But I also think double clicking on sort of the other half of your point, just that there is more knowledge left to be untapped or tapped into, I guess, right, and brought to the world. Even like it could be from work groups, from teams, and other places and organizations that haven't traditionally been thinking about leveraging streaming content as a way to connect. We got to get our friend Danny Colella to come in here. He's a live streaming.
That'd be great.
He teaches folks how to do live streaming. So I will arrange to get Danny in to come and talk to him, because he helps companies figure out how to get into live streaming. So it could be pretty instructive for a lot of folks as well.
Oh, definitely. And maybe let's get somebody from like LinkedIn Learning and on the show to really tell us.
We know someone from LinkedIn Learning.
Oh yeah, that's right. We should ping them and
ready to leave though, but maybe we'll get her over here soon as well.
All right, sounds good. All right, moving on. There we go. You are correct, Greg. Earlier, we did miss one. Oops. I'm blaming everything on Friday the 13th, right? Everything is going wrong.
What's your favorite Friday the 13th story? Tell us in the comments.
Great user engagement there, Greg. Awesome. So here's some. I mean, this is probably not unexpected. We're probably going to hear a lot more of these types of
stories. By the way, what was Spotlight, Ken?
Spotlight is basically TikTok. It's like the equivalent of Instagram Reels, right? Everything is all a copy of Snap in a sense. Like Snap is the progenitor of all of these tools that Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok all came up with, right? Mm-hmm. And what Snap has done is, and Greg, you covered this, I think, early in our series, right? I think it was probably like the first episode that we talked about this, where Snap said, "Look, we're going to stop paying their creator fee. They're going to stop paying $1 million a day to creators, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're going to, but they said they'll still pay, but they'll pay like millions of dollars, an untold number of millions of dollars per month. Now, those that are being a part of Snap's Spotlight feature, saying, "Look, the money's has gone away. There's nothing wrong with Spotlight. It's just they're going to find greener pastures, and they're moving over to Instagram. They're moving over to TikTok. They're going to where the money is, where there's still a lot of these funds, right? And it's an interesting reality that's shaping up, because how do platforms create these sustainable features and communities without having to resort to bribery, right? I mean, it's like you can entice them with financial incentives, but once you take it away, your people will leave, and you're going to have attrition regardless. But how do you keep them there to do it? Because, oh wow, this is an amazing product, so let me continue to build for it even after the incentive is gone.
So is your thought, I mean, I think it's a good point to raise, is that, do you think potentially that these formats are not engaging actually, like, or they're not, don't provide like the expressiveness that creators benefit from? Like, you know what I mean? So were they there for the money, or were they there for the self-expression and the creativity? You know, it seems like some people will stay and continue to use these tools because they find the format useful.
Yeah. Well, according to one creator in the CNBC article, he's saying, "It's sad because I work really hard every day putting the hours in, but they haven't paid me." right? And so what this creator is calling out, and specifically, is Snap's erratic payments, right? So there's that demotivation. So there's a negativity on the company side, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying like, look, if you're going to do these type of things, you have to be on it, because any type of slip up from the company in terms of paying these creators will cause them to lose interest and lose hope and any motivation to generate any content on there. Because it's like, as we will talk about in our deep dive,
Yeah.
all social networks are basically the same. So what's going to keep me on, Snap, when I can do the exact same thing on TikTok, literally have the same features, but have the chance of making more money.
And by
Now,
the way, it may be such that, even though I completely disagree with Legion's article or framing that there's a crisis in the creator economy, perhaps the place where her points are the most salient is actually in these around these funds, because even though there isn't a contractual or spoken point or request for content, say, what they are saying is make stuff here because we're going to pay you for making stuff here,
right.
right? Um, Arguably, and I would still probably, ultimately say that what folks need to do is still move back towards a mindset of, this is a way to leverage or create visibility for myself. And so how am I going to turn that into something more interesting, not to actually begrudge it. Someone I hate it.
Well, Greg,
Yeah.
from a developer side, right? I mean, you've been an entrepreneur. You've worked with platforms before on the developer side. These funds, these bribery tools, these incentives are not new to in any way, shape, or form. So why is it that these hello, Mike McAdan, nice to see you again. My God, it's been a while. But what is it about these developer funds do dry up as well? And so what is going to entice you to stay with, like, on an Instagram, to continue building on Facebook, continue building on Twitter,
Yeah.
continue building on YouTube, Google, so on and so forth, without that financial incentive? And that would be model would be the same here.
I think it goes to the broader point, which is that they need to be investing in helping creators become better businesses, such that they can either participate in more of the upside. So for Snap to give away that amount of money means that they're actually monetizing it somewhere else, but they aren't sharing that part. And so they could turn off the gimmicky parts and just say, let's build this together, let's share and move forward. So again, like, hate to be agreeing with Legion. But I will say, like, this part I think is very reasonable. Like, some of the arguments she makes are totally reasonable. However, I think this is a prime example, right, of where, because they're not investing in the long-term success of the creators. By the way, for example, there was a statistic I'd heard that something like 50% of the subs on Twitch are churned out because Twitch's actual business model is actually fundamentally premised on just getting people to keep subbing. They don't care who you sub to. It's the Amazon Prime kind of model, right? Like, it's like, I don't care what kind of toilet paper you're buying, just keep buying toilet paper, right?
Right.
I don't know who makes that plug. I don't know who makes this, whatever thing I just bought. It doesn't matter. It all blends together. I don't think it's quite so bad or severe in the creator economy, right? And certainly in the Twitch content ecosystem, but there are challenges there for sure. And I think, it'll be interesting to see how some of this plays out. But we do have our deep dive to dive in some more of this anyway. Let's make sure we get through the rest of our news.
Absolutely. So, kind of keeping on that front here, this article from The Guardian kind of raises an interesting point about the evolution of these social platforms, right? Instagram has always been this, and its foundation was a place for creators, for creative creators, right? This is where people would post like artistic type of photos and imagery, almost like what you get in the early days of Flickr, SmugMug, and those type of things, right? 500 pics, and so on and so forth. But apparently there's a little bit of a revolt. Some Instagram creators are kind of upset that the app is moving away from, just this creative modality, this creative philosophy, and to what Kevin Systrom was kind of like had said at its DNA, to more about video, right? And it's more about Now you see with Instagram, it's all about reels. It's all about video. It's about going live and those type of things. And they're done with it. They're like, okay, they're upset that Instagram CEO a few weeks ago said we're no longer a photo sharing app, right? And so it's basically redefining its DNA. It's reshaping who it is. And so they're like, okay, we're done. And so they'll move on to other platforms, and you start to see that there are apps that are coming out that are going to be challenging Instagram on that front, and siphoning away those that are like, I don't want to say like purists or traditional Instagram traditionalists, if you will. And like, for example, Glass, which just launched on iOS, which is all about just the photography. It's not about the, oh, let me go for the likes or the follows or anything like that.
Instagram says they're going to be about video, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're getting rid of photos.
No, but it's more about the emphasis, right? Because the algorithm is placing more of an emphasis on the fact that I'm posting a reel, I'm posting a story. Yeah. That's gonna be promoted more than the fact of me taking an artistic photo of the meteor shower that happened this week, of me walking through downtown Seattle, and taking it, or my great shot of the Space Needle, or of my coffee latte that I just had, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, what is the true emphasis that you want to promote? And these creators that are upset, they're saying it's because it's, and I think this is a common refrain that what we see in, regardless of whatever platform, it's the algorithm, right? It's like, we need more transparency in algorithm to understand what is the priority here, and why is it that I may have gotten hundreds of likes for my photos over the past year, but then all of a sudden I'm not getting that traction anymore, right? And I guess this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Heather Ramirez yesterday. It's like, feeding the beast, right? And to feed the beast yearns for reels, yearns for video, yearns for ephemeral content.
Yeah, but the problem is that when we say that, who's the beast? Is the beast the consumer, or is the beast the platform, right? Like, mm-hmm. So
could be a two-headed beast.
Sure, that's reasonable, but I guess like we have to be careful with that, right? Like, I guess like, because it seems like the easy foil here is always like blame the platform, mm-hmm. And it's like, I had a user-generated content platform that we ran for 7 years to shoot, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole time I had that platform, I couldn't get anyone to do video content, because it was too complicated, it was too expensive, it took like too much time, there was a lot of risk associated with it, right? And no one wanted to do it, right? Like, that was 7 years ago. Today, everyone wants to do it, right? Like, there's just such a bigger appetite. Technology's evolved, screen technology's evolved, right? Bandwidth is evolving. So I guess I don't really get, I get like the platforms have an incentive to want to sort of create formats that lead to more insertion points for advertising, right? Like, period. Like, everyone gets that, no doubt. However, at the same time, consumers, little by little, the water around the frog is boiling, right? And so they're warming up to this content as well. But everyone is in on that game, right? Like, the phone makers are making faster CPUs and higher refresh rates and all these other things for a reason, right? The carriers are increasingly putting out more and more, bandwidth for a reason, right? Like, everyone is putting more higher fidelity things. Mm-hmm. So my caution would be, if that is your art form, like creating static content, no one can ever take that away from you. No one can make you stop doing it, right? Mm-hmm. However, it is always possible that as an artist, you are creating something that people don't want, right? And this idea that we talk about in the past is that everyone competes in the marketplace of ideas, right? All attention is finite. And so if what you need to be successful is the attention of people, you cannot begrudge that people's attentions are moving on or moving to new ways and places. It is your job to be adaptive to that. Now, I'm not saying that that's how everyone has to be, obviously, mm-hmm. but if that is the way you sustain yourself, then you need to move with the times, right? If you want to go a different way, craft, you want to go nostalgia, you want to go niche, Great, go do that. You can also monetize that pathway. Likely, though, that pathway of monetization looks very different than what we traditionally have seen and what we've traditionally pursued. There's people who still restore old ass cars and people love them. I want an old ass car, right? Like I love the look, the feel, the nostalgia of it. It's a skill, it's a trade, it's very different. They're not trying to get mass appeal. They're not trying to sell 100 of them, they're trying to sell one a year.
Right.
That's the analog, I guess, right? So I think like it's a great point you're raising, and I certainly understand people having sort of a negative, because they're vested in how much they put into this. But much like think about the kid on Snap who was just saying, I was putting so much time in and I'm not getting paid. He's on a different part of the same spectrum, no? Right? He's like, I learned and I mastered how to make this kind of content, and this kind of content doesn't exist anymore. How do you think all those Vine people felt?
Wow, you had to bring up Vine. Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
But all of those people who were on Vine, where are they now? Most of them figured out how to reapply the skill, the expertise, the insights that they had into new and better places, right? And have achieved way bigger success as a result of it. But arguably and truthfully, a whole bunch couldn't get past not doing Vines anymore.
Well, also it's like they were able to join a platform, namely, let's call it, namely Instagram, because Instagram lasted longer than an average length of time of a Vine, right? Vine was very much an ephemeral product. It basically lasted shorter than a Quibi. So like you didn't really have a chance to really flourish.
Is Quibi bigger or smaller than a Parsec?
Now we're just really twisting analogies here, because isn't parsecs, parsecs a measure of time. Yeah. I don't know. Somebody help educate us and leave it in the comment and tell us how this all works out, because
but well, I know we have like 4 more articles, Ken, so we should probably
keep going. All right.
Through.
So
this is interesting too.
Greg, I know you are a fan of Quora. I know I am, right? Here's the thing. Quora is actually launching, is working on a premium offering for creators, so they can actually make money off of this, right? So creators can make money off of this. It's very similar to what you would encounter on Medium, right? There's the paywall aspect. So there's 2 parts of how you're going to be able to monetize yourself on Quora. And for those that are unaware of what Quora is a question and answer social network. It's like Yahoo Answers, though Quora bills itself as being a place that is where you're going to have answers that are going to be provided by professionals. It's not going to have a lot of spam. The members themselves police each other, so you're actually going to get factual and helpful information regardless of the answer, right? Regardless of the question. So what's going to happen? What they have is 2 options here. The first one, they're calling it Quora Plus, right? But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. It's not a streaming service. It's not streaming, which is very misleading how they're using.
Not yet.
Well, this is also true, right? but it's very misleading. I feel like this is a narrative violation of using the plus sign, because you got to come up with something different, right? So this is what I was talking about. This is like Medium, where Medium back in the day, they decided to roll out this paywall option so select creators can get paid for their content. So $5 a month or $50 annually, you can pay to access any creator's content, their answers behind it. But what's different is that you're not actually paying the creator, in this case the respondent, right? So right. For example, Greg, you might have this great answer around the creator economy, right? Or whatever, venture capital product, whatever, right? My $5 per month is not going to.
So it's like more of a Medium kind of model, like
it is. It's going to Quora directly, and then it gets distributed based on how many people view your response, right? Yep. So out of that $5, you might get 20 cents, for example.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha. That makes sense, I guess.
It does. I mean, but it encourages you.
It feels like they left a lot on the table there, because like the paid answer ecosystem, it does exist. I mean, there's companies like SuperPeer and what was Dan Martell's thing, Clarity, and a number of places where you can buy like spot expertise. So maybe that's still on the roadmap or soon to come.
Yep. And then finally, there's another option where they're calling Spaces, again, a narrative violation, because Spaces is more going to be akin to, audio. Anyways, so this is going to be a
Okay.
user-based publication. You can pay for that,
Private
right?
posts.
Private
This
posts, you
is
can pay
their
for that.
Substack.
Exactly, right? So they're actually going to. I mean, this is Spaces is actually pretty interesting because you can actually on Quora you can really establish yourself as a subject matter expert around any topic on Quora, and people that are going on Quora are having a need for that information, right? They want to know more about that topic, and you're going to have all these Q&As, all these questions, and then your name theoretically could be there highlighted at, hey, check out Greg's thoughts on blah blah blah, right? So this is going to be pretty interesting. Quora's been around for a while. I've covered them back in the day as a reporter. Interesting.
Remember
company.
Mora? Is Mike saying something about Mora? Was that enough?
I'm not really sure what Mora is. Could you elaborate more there, Mike?
But so interesting. I see a point here that they are saying that Quora will take 5% of the subscription fee, which they can choose at their own discretion, versus the 10% that Substack takes. It's interesting because I think ultimately it's like everything seems like a race to the bottom in a lot of ways, right? Like it's like, oh, we're going to take a 0.5%, or I'm going to take a 5%, I'm going to take 10%, whatever it may be. I do think that the direction we're heading in ultimately, and most likely, I would say, is that as there's maturation in the creator space, to the extent that creators continue to recognize themselves as as creators recognize themselves, I guess, more as businesses, though, or certainly as entrepreneurs or as careerists, even, that they invest in tools, right? Maybe, and as they invest in those tools and are willing to pay the fees to run their business on software, a lot of these transactional fees can, potentially be lowered or eliminated entirely.
Yeah.
I will say, for example, like we built our Zealous on Stripe. No matter what I do, even if I decide to give away, like not have any transactional participation in the relationship, Stripe still has a fee, right? The credit card company still has a fee. You're still paying like a 3% or whatever it's going to be. But I would love to have a better answer now. Like, should we be a SaaS company? Tell us, tell creator founders out there, like, do you want them to be SaaS companies right now, right? Or do you want them to actually, continue to do a take rate until you reach some point in time where you feel comfortable with it, right? So everyone's trying to get to scale, and hope perhaps, like, if we have less venture-backed organizations, we will see more companies have the option or the luxury of not necessarily having to sort of like game the system. So, I find it interesting, like, let's go back to Lead Gen for a second, that it is also the venture ecosystem that creates many of these constraints and sort of like rules of engagement around all of these various companies. And it is ultimately changing the investment model that ultimately can help change the way that the participation model works as well. So hence, traditional VC, even traditional angel investing, ultimately still are driving people and like founders like us to sort of maximize for certain kinds of outcomes, which is why I also don't want to raise money if I can avoid it. But, obviously to get to where we need to be, we may need it, right? So it's a catch-22.
All right. Well, speaking of money and Medium, right? And Mike, that was a great name for Quora Plus, Mora. I'm not a dad, so obviously well over my head. But we should bring that up to Adam D'Angelo, the CEO of Quora, and see if we can't do a good rebrand, because there's clearly a narrative violation there. So Medium, we're talking about this. Medium had this paywall issue of $5 a month. Apparently, they're changing their partner program, so now 50% of the revenue of the revenue generated from it is being shared with the creators, right? So this is a interesting move by Medium, not necessarily unsurprising, because Medium's had some problems trying to really create a community publishing platform, if you will. Right? They've had
If
layoffs.
Medium wasn't founded by Ev, it would be dead a long time ago, right?
Well, and with their good bankroll, right? That's what's keeping it around.
So Ev ultimately, I think, is what gets the funds to let it stick around for so long. But like the experiment has not been. I love Medium, by the way. I think there's great content there.
It's a great platform structurally, from an infrastructure standpoint.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But the experimentation that they have done, which I think I completely appreciate and value, that they continue to experiment to find ways to help people get paid to write, and to share their knowledge and insights. I love that. I think it's an amazing platform in many regards that way. But when we look at some of these, like the complaints that we have or about like platforms today, right? This is actually the kind of stuff that we're seeing right now. Like unless you have a ton of money to experiment, or you have a million experimenters who don't need money, right? What ends up happening is this kind of innovation just doesn't happen by itself, right? And this is some of the challenge. And I think some of the decentralized efforts that we are seeing are more of these sort of community-driven or group-driven efforts. There is a lot of merit in that, but we also have to realize the economics like that are still kind of at play. And even here, I think like Medium, I think I remember like previously when they like had laid off a bunch of staff, or they almost had unionized, for example.
Yep.
Right? I think they were one guy of unionizing. They were only doing like $35 million a year or something, I think, in revenue.
So actually here they're saying for their partner program that launched in 2017, they paid out $28 million since then. So that's what, 5 years now.
Okay. So that means that they're
over 200,000 contributors
with a ramp, right? And then also their take rate, obviously, right, was not necessarily that high. Most of that money I would imagine is late loaded.
Yeah. So they're actually, this is not necessarily a drastic change in their program per se.
They were very transparent too, by the way. Like
absolutely
here, I loved it.
Yeah,
maybe you should read it out for anyone who's not.
So basically, let's do it from a monthly perspective, right? So membership price at $5, you pay that to Medium. They broke out like the fees. So there's a payment processing fee of 2.9%, so which is 15 cents. Payment processing flat fee of 30 cents, net of payment fees $4.55, and a split between Medium and creators, $2.27 a piece. So per month for one referred member is $2.27, but per month for 100 referred, obviously, is $227. So there's a lot more to digest with this. So, this is going to be available on our Flipboard magazine for you to check out. But certainly there's a lot of change happening at Medium. Whether or not this will actually encourage more contributors and have this be a sustainable model and build upon the paywall or the membership model that Medium's doing will be interesting to see how that flourishes. So
either way, these unit economics suck, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's right now. If you look at it just on its one person, it obviously sucks. But let's see how it,
I guess like to some degree, there's the Medium approach, and it's kind of like how I thought about Clubhouse, right? They bring together they bring you the audience, and so you can show up and sort of try to monetize. That's the Medium version. Substack is like, I have an audience, I'll bring it. And I think, now Substack's kind of getting a little blendo in that space, right? By trying to have their discovery and newsreader sort of thing as well built in. Yeah. Eileen did have a comment here. She said, creators have so many choices these days, but we need to be careful about which apps we use to engage with our audiences. We need to be sure we have certain controls in place. Absolutely. Eileen, we're going to get you on the show next. All right. We're going to do the deep dive with Eileen soon as well, because we got James next week. But I would love to have you join us soon as well.
Greg, I'm sorry. I just pulled up this article. I think you might have some thoughts about this one.
Yeah. So our next article, I've already bashed it once this week, so I feel bad bashing it again.
Well, give us the TLDR here.
Okay. So here's the thought. Legion has written an article that has a lot of great points about how platform builders should think about building the future for creators. However, the big problem I have with this post is the title, which is that the creator economy is in crisis. Now let's fix it. I would not describe this as a crisis. However, in my old age, since Wednesday, I have come to become more generous in my beliefs about what she said.
Whoa.
So here's what I will say is this. Let me frame, I think, what I believe fundamentally, even from talking with Heather on Wednesday. I believe that there are 2 points of view that are here, and they both can coexist potentially at the same time, right? To one extent, there are people, creators today, who are on platform who feel compelled, not from a directive, but sort of ancillary by information, right? That they need to do certain things, right? Now, some of those things I think are financial things, right? Like, so they're like, great, create shorts. We're going to pay you $1 million, right? There's $1 billion available for everyone who creates shorts. There is an opportunity. I get very soft in my old age, James, right? But so I think there's some people who feel like I need to do that because that's how I'm going to make my money. So I need to participate in this new version, this new format, this new thing, right? There's a second group of people who are analytical and observant of like what their audience is, either their audience is directly engaging with. They're looking at the analytics on their own content and saying, people seem to like this kind of content. Or there are people who are looking at what other creators are having success with and saying, maybe I should emulate that, right? So I think there's an implicit, but this is a very soft force, I would say, ultimately, notion that there's gig work, that you feel compelled that you have to do this kind of work. And we've heard that from creators in many different shapes and forms, that they feel like they can't get off the hamster wheel, that they have to work and they have to continue to apply the trade. I get that part. However, I want to be clear. You don't work for YouTube, right? You work for yourself and you distribute your content on YouTube. You don't work for Twitch. You work for yourself. You create your content. If you decided tomorrow you didn't want to put your content on Twitch, you could. Now, are there ramifications to that? Absolutely, right? So the second part, the second side of this coin that I think is really important, which I've been harping on, and I think Heather was, I think, largely in agreement with, is that creators should increasingly see themselves as business people leveraging opportunities to grow their business, not as people who are enslaved by an actual platform where they have no control or say, right? If a platform, a distribution channel as a business owner doesn't work for me anymore, what do? I switch it. I either change the provider, I change the economics of how I work there, right? Like there are other ways I can adjust my engagement and use of a distribution channel, a sales channel, a lead generation channel, a marketing channel, right? All of those things can be adjusted and changed as a business person. And they certainly can be diversified so that I can leverage more and more of them, right? So I think where I fundamentally disagree is ultimately that this is a gig economy because no one is paying for gigs, right? Like for it to be a gig, I would have to literally, and at least in my opinion, I'm using a very, I think, rigid definition perhaps, right? But my point is that I would have to be instructed by someone to do something for a price, right? That, as far as I know, I've been around this space for a long time, that is not how these platforms work, right? They can maybe get you to the line. They can convince you you're missing out. They can create FOMO. They can try to incentivize you to go in certain directions, but they can't make you go in that direction. Now, there's obviously all the other underlying things that still absolutely exist, like the algorithmic things, all the things you can't control, right? The bias in their search engine, who they tend to recommend. There's any number of factors that are absolutely real and present. However, those factors exist for everyone in every channel who's ever done business, right? You don't usually get full control, full say over every part of everything unless you're a true entrepreneur that builds everything from scratch, which probably makes you also a moron, right? Because like that's not the most efficient way to generally do things, right? Unless the stuff doesn't exist, you're better off leveraging what you can leverage, right? So my big disagreement with this post, right, is ultimately that it acts like everyone is in a certain kind of environment that is not factually true to the environment they're in, right? And then to counterpoint it, actually, when you look at the things she's outlining, there's been several billion dollars invested towards changing that. And more importantly, Ken, what I would say is if you look back on the news that we've shared today, the news we were talking about earlier this week, the pressure is on the platforms to actually get better, right? Like, when did this 50-50 split come, right? Like, Quora was making all the money, right? Quora was making all the money before. Now they're sharing some of the money, right? Instagram, I mean, I get these funds are all crappy, relatively speaking, but that money is flowing in the right direction. So I think ultimately she's being a little alarmist, right? Because one, this isn't a gig economy. Two, these folks should be viewed, I hope, and I hope they view themselves increasingly as entrepreneurs building businesses and learning how to succeed and scale on their own, right? But more importantly, is that the ecosystem is also moving rapidly to be better participants and be better allies to creators as well. Is it instant? No. Is it going to happen in 5 seconds? No, right? Are we seeing movement? Absolutely. Are we seeing investment? Absolutely. If we find more ways to innovate the investment model so that founders like me who want to build tools to support and help creators be more successful can do that in a meaningful way and also create outcomes for me and my family like you want to create for you and your family, great. Let's have more of that. Let's pursue more of those pathways, right? However, it also requires that more and more of our creators become smarter financial folks so they can also make sounder investments. They can help grow the ecosystem. They can help build the tools that they want to see exist in the world, right? You can't be part of the change if you don't drive it yourself, right? So that's my big take on this article. Like I'll give back a little bit, but mostly I think it's framed in a way that is not helpful because what it does is it perpetuates a victimology when everyone here that's participating can and should actively work to change their futures and their prospects.
So you're saying you are a fan of this article?
If I were to delete 90% of it, I might like it.
You know, I would love to have Legion on the show.
I don't think she will ever come on our show, but we can try.
I think there would be a very constructive conversation.
But by the way, this is like Legion's extremely smart, knows the space inside out. Like I just don't get why choose to frame the opportunity in such a negative light when there are so many positive signals coming out, and instead teaching people how to double click on the positive signals, we're looking backwards at all the things we don't have, even though those things are also slowly changing too.
Right. And with our last, and wanted to show this tweet, Greg.
There's a thread here. I was going to go through and annotate, but I think, actually there's one in there, Ken, where she sort of has like a 4 bullet point. And I'll just point out like how my philosophy, I think, applies, like right there, right?
Yep.
So she's saying these are parallels to the gig economy, right? Oversupply and competition, big creators. Guess what? You're in a marketplace of ideas and everybody is competing for everybody's attention. I don't know how platforms can make that less viable. I don't know how decentralization, where we scatter people to more places, makes it better for a creator to create a future, right? Exploitation of creator labor. They set the rules absolutely for where and when you can monetize, but you are not incapable of monetizing before that point in time, right? You could still choose to monetize earlier. If you're waiting for them to get you to monetization, you're messing up anyway, as far as I'm concerned. This is why, much like Heather and I were saying on Wednesday, we think you should build from a business mindset forward as you start. Doesn't mean you have to monetize right away, but be prepared and start to think and plan like a business person, right? Insecurity and volatility, business risks are externalized and shifted onto creators. Really? Because they're entrepreneurs. Everyone has risk. Everyone has insecurity and everyone has volatility. We trade in attention. It is inherently problematic for us to sort of stack and build in this universe, right? So now the truth in this part, in her point, is ultimately the API changes and some of these other things. But I do think while that has actually and factually happened, it may be a little bit overblown, right? I don't believe that 90% of the creator ecosystem has like been wiped out, like for example, by a sweeping change or a sudden change. Now, there are definitely been impacts and sometimes softening, and that is the kind of thing that you should be working to prevent being the victim of, not complaining that someone else took it away from you, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the intermediation and taxation, I don't even know what that means, right? You are using a distribution partner, hence you chose intermediation, right? Like you chose to have an intermediary in the middle. If on day one you start today as a creator and the first thing you don't do is start to get to know who your audience is, start to build relationships with your fans, start to know how to contact your own fans out of the platform, outside of the platform that you're actually on right now, you have messed up. That is your fault, right? To allow someone to be in between you and your customer. Right? But every time you go live, every time you post, every time you reply to a comment, you are directly engaging. So you are not fully disintermediated in this process, but you have chosen an intermediary because it's called distribution. And that distribution has a cost, hence the tax.
All right. Well, I know we were going to move on to our deep dive, but I think you basically have done the deep dive for this week, Greg. But I think this is certainly a conversation.
Oh, no, I can, but the last article I think touches on, you should touch on this now because I think it touches on some of the platform movement that we've been talking about.
Right. And I'm just saying that this conversation is not one that's going to be like, is not going to be solved or end with one article, right? This is going to continue on as the creator economy, as the passion economy, as technology continues to move forward and innovation continues to grow, and you're going to see more startups and more investment and the like. And I think this is something we have to be cognizant about as we talk to our guests to see how they view these type of things. But kind of going on to our last article is from The Information, which is a very interesting. The headline is very poignant, right? Because this is something that we talked about early on in the show. All social networks look the same. This is from, again, our dear friend Kaya Yuriev, the reporter at The Information, who covers the creator economy. And I think this is what really sums it all up, is looking at this chart, where it's basically saying, it kind of outlines, looks at the big tech platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube, and color codes it, like, how do they stack up against each other when it comes to things like stories, short form video, live streaming, shopping, and live audio. For the most part, many those that are in green, which says yes, they have these platforms have these features. Most of these platforms have stories. Most of them have live streaming. Most of them have some form of short form video. Shopping is something that's still being tested, but you're going to start to see more of these e-commerce type of things within the social aspect. So interestingly, but maybe not as surprisingly, live audio is still very much dominated by Facebook, though LinkedIn is said to be testing it. I'm sorry, Twitter also has it. My bad. Sorry, Twitter Spaces. By the way, Greg, we also got booted from our Twitter Spaces early in the show. So
as per usual,
maybe that green should be a yellow as for testing for Twitter Spaces. But there's still a lot of red, obviously, in live video and live audio. LinkedIn and Pinterest still and Twitter are missing short form video.
Half of these things weren't even here like a year ago.
Actually, I would say since January, since the pandemic, this is how rapid these things are moving. But again, this goes back to the common refrain I have: is live audio a defensible thing for Clubhouse? Right?
So it is here. My argument would be this: it's defensible to the extent that someone wants to create a purely dedicated audio social network, right? I believe that most of the other platforms are using what I call accessorized audio. So they are adding audio to something, which is not the same thing as being a purely dedicated sort of audio-based social network, right? Like just much like say like a Discord is a dedicated text-based community or engagement or communication model for gamers, right? Maybe often for many gamers, it was also an audio communication channel. It's if they want to be a dedicated, primarily audio social network, I think there's going to be one of those, right? So now, how big is
it worked for YouTube, right? To be like a
video based, right?
But back then it was there. But now it's like the cost of entry, the barriers to entry are so low that anybody can do a YouTube. But when you look at when you're talking about earlier, right, with Snap, and you talk about with with Legion's article and everything like that, it's like, oh, you don't like what Instagram's doing, you don't like what Snap's doing, the creator funds, all these things are drying up, so you pack up your bag and you move on to TikTok or whatever. They're basically all the same. What's going to be the differentiator, right? That's going to be, and I get there's a difference in talking about like a comparative differences between when it talks about startups. But when you talk about the big tech platforms, I think it's like when you have like, oh, they're all the same in terms of like just for creator tools. Could it be that the real differentiator, what's going to separate you, is the network effect, right? Because I get what you're saying, Greg.
Right.
When you're talking about
the problem is that what many are pushing for is like a decentralized approach. The problem is that that discovery is a highly centralized effort, right? Like it's intentionally centralizing resources into a place. And so the more we want to decentralize, we're creating this very difficult slope, like this very steep learning curve, I think, for creators to have to reinvest if they're going for the same kind of revenue models that they exist in the past. But we are at time. Great discussion. And I hope we'll continue this. Like you said, it's a long running thread. So we'll be touching on this many, many times going forward. Legion, you are welcome. I know you're not watching, but you are always welcome to come join the show. We do have some amazing guests coming up, by the way. Actually is a good lead in. James Hicks, our good friend, dear friend in the audience right now. He's going to be here next Wednesday for our deep dive interview on the creative economy. We have Creative Briefs next Friday. We have Martin Wavren from Garden, which is the first live streaming studio in Rotterdam, coming up on the Wednesday after that. Creative Briefs again. We got Antonio and Steven back. We have confirmed, obviously, Jim Louderback. I know we mentioned it, but he will be back
on the 8th.
On the 8th. Yep. And I think we can safely confirm and say now, Josh Constantine for Signifier will be here later in the month next month on September 22nd as well. So we will have a real investor in the midst to press some of these questions too. So looking forward to it. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. It's been truly amazing to be here. I hope we did a good job this week. We will have the show notes up in a day or so. Creative Economy Plus, Arnold. I don't know when we're going to get to that, but you know what? We have a feature in Zealous coming where I can charge. So if you want to give me money,
well, Arnold, you can pay for it, but you're only going to have me on there.
Arnold, you can pay for a Ken only stream. We're going to give you a dedicated Ken. Maybe we'll call that one Creative Economy Minus.
This is what happens when the algorithms run, when platforms mess with the algorithms. Okay, Arnold, you asked for it. We're giving it to you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for participating and playing on the comments, and we will see you next Wednesday.
See you, everybody.